All right, how's everybody doing? Hope you're all doing great. Thanks for stopping by for our weekly Wednesday night live stream. We're going to talk about one of history's greatest losers tonight, Mr. Donald John Trump, the only president to lose the popular vote twice and to be impeached twice. In fact, he's the only one to do either of those things, I believe. It's a pretty big deal. We'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about some really interesting breaking news that apparently Marjorie Taylor Greene and other, far-right Republicans have already moved to impeach Joe Biden. I'm not making that up. We're gonna be playing that clip. We're gonna talk about that and how ridiculous that is, and then we'll also talk a bit about how the Democrats have to seize this moment, and they have to ensure that the Republicans not be allowed to seize this moment. And how that's not a guarantee that the Democrats are necessarily going to come out of this better than the Republicans, depending on how this is played. So we'll talk about it from a policy perspective, as well as a strategic perspective. A lot of people here, great to see you all. For those that are new to the channel, click the subscribe button, click the like button, leave a comment, let me know how you're feeling right now. Scale of 1 to 10, how big of a deal do you think this is? 10 being massive, 0 being not a big deal at all with Trump being impeached. I'd love to know what you think. And we'll get started. I see Samantha Sider has left a super chat. Thank you, Samantha. What are the odds you would give of the Senate convicting Trump? And then Joseph Mangano says it's a celebration stream, and then 3 happy smiley faces. So guys, thank you both for that. I very much appreciate it. Okay, in general, I don't know if I can give a number, right? I don't know if I can give a number. But I would say there is a chance for a few reasons. One, the first impeachment was about something important, but a lot more ephemeral, right? Sotomo, thank you so much for that dancing #1 fan pair activewear wearing guy. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. But no, that first impeachment was about something within a document that was like a transcript of a Trump call. It's hard to understand politically. Even if I supported that impeachment, that is something kind of ephemeral to the average voter. Yeah. But this time, Brianna says hi, everybody. Bree says hi. Yeah. For those that, Bree is a frequent co-host, but she's been really busy at work today, so she won't be able to join, but she's going to come and say hi. She even wore a matching shirt and everything, yeah. But,
Hi, everybody. How are you? Hope you're doing well. A little bit of a celebration, I guess, going on.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun stream tonight. We're going to watch the Trump video he put out. We're going to watch Marjorie Taylor Greene try to suggest that Biden's going to get impeached. Lots to talk about. But to Samantha's question there, this time, what he's being impeached over is clear as day. He sicked his supporters on his opponents. Not metaphorically, not like ideologically, but physically. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. And we all saw it. We saw the video. We saw the pictures. We saw the aftermath. Right? We saw the testimony. We still don't know everything, but what we do know is horrifying. So, in a lot of ways, the people could feel it, and I think a lot of Republicans could feel it, that this is a big deal, and I can't be supporting this. And that's why 10 Republicans in the House, which was 10 more than last time, voted to impeach, and why even a lot of people that didn't vote to impeach, they said they agreed with the accusations, but not with the process. Basically saying, yeah, Trump is guilty, but this 1 week impeachment is too fast, and as a result, I can't support it. And so if you work that out, it might be 24 people from the Republican caucus. And so in that sense, you really are finding a situation where Republicans don't see Trump as brand friendly as he was even 2 weeks ago. I'm sure that he's still scaring a lot of people, But it's also telling, and this is why I think in the Senate you're more likely to see some movement, is not only because more people have said something. Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Ben Sass, Toomey, maybe some others have all indicated they might support impeachment. But Mitch McConnell has been saying behind the scenes that he's actually kind of happy that they're considering impeachment, because if Trump does get pushed out, it might make it easier for Republicans to turn the page on the Trump era and blame and isolate the blame on certain people, and then have a better chance of moving on in 2022 and 2024.
Well, and we had an interesting conversation earlier today about, actually like inciting the riot, right? Like there's a legal definition to incite, and then there's, what Trump did, which was a moral and ethical.
Yeah, and a political.
Did you talk about that already?
Well, we haven't yet, but if people want to go check that, if people haven't watched them yet, go check out Legal Eagle, who does like these fun videos about legal issues, sometimes in like pop culture, but lately, obviously, he's been focusing a lot on impeachment and the issues surrounding that and the election and all those sorts of things. So go check him out. But to suffice it to say, he says it's definitely, like, Trump is definitely guilty in a political sense. Mm-hmm. But in a court of law, it's tricky because the court is very, very reluctant to make something
because there's a line between incitement and your right to free speech. And there has to be several factors that are fulfilled in order for them to curtail one's First Amendment right.
Exactly. And they always want to side, if in doubt, on free speech, especially with regard to political speech, which is probably the right decision, honestly. But the point is, I think there is a chance. If I had to give a number, I would say 15 to 20% chance Trump gets removed. They're going to need about 17 votes or so. It's going to depend on when the vote happens. If we assume that it happens after the 20th, which it likely will, it will mean that Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff are in the Senate, which means it'll be 50-50. And if it's 50-50, that means you got to get to about 67, right? You got to get more than 2/3. And so in that sense, you need 17 Republicans. And you start thinking who you're going to get. It's going to be a mixture of people that were already not really pro-Trump, and maybe people that are facing elections in blue-leaning states and swing states that know Trump is toxic. Those are going to be the kind of people to look at, right? Like, a lot of the Republicans that stood up to Trump this time were either already deep anti-Trumpers or are people that worry that, they were from districts where people voted for them and then against Trump. Mm-hmm. And so maybe they're going with the wind.
Okay, Betty Mush has a super chat. Also, there's questions coming up in the chat, but I have to go. Okay.
Everyone say bye to Bree. Thank you so much, Betty, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. So, I mean, in general, my view is that it's possible. If Mitch McConnell is like, I'm sort of fine with it. I don't know if Mitch is going to come out and publicly support it, but he seems like he's at least behind the scenes fine with it. Then, like, that's one of the biggest barriers. If there's no one saying we're going to punish you in the Senate if you vote for impeachment, then it gives people freedom. Now, of course, there's still going to be political pressure on them from the outside, from the Republican Party, from the Trump base. They risk being primaried if that's the case, things like that. But, in general, I think it's possible. I think it's possible. Right? I do. I really do. So the first thing, I wanted to show some videos. So I want to first watch the Trump video of him officially speaking about this event. So I want to put that on, get that up here. Let me get that up here, and then get the volume up. Okay, want to make sure the audio is good.
I want to speak to you tonight.
So let me get this up. I want to listen to this with you guys. Let me know how the audio is. I'm gonna keep an eye on that.
To you tonight,
If we need to, we'll restart it.
my fellow Americans, I want to speak to you tonight about the troubling events of the past week. As I have said, the incursion of the U.S. Capitol struck at the very heart of our republic. It angered and appalled millions of Americans across the political spectrum. I want to be very clear. I unequivocally condemn the violence that we saw last week. Violence and vandalism have absolutely no place in our country and no place in our movement. Making America great again has always been about...
Okay, Samantha's saying a little bit louder. We'll start it again. I was fiddling with the thing. I'm going to turn it a little bit louder if I can. Okay, we're going to start this again. Let's watch this. Let's see what Trump says. Let's see what he doesn't say. He put this out right after he was impeached. I don't know if he recorded it beforehand, but this is Trump's first statement and thus far only statement after being impeached.
My fellow Americans, I want to speak to you tonight about the troubling events of the past week. As I have said, the incursion of the U.S. Capitol struck at the very heart of our republic. It angered and appalled millions of Americans across the political spectrum. I want to be very clear. I unequivocally condemn the violence that we saw last week.
I mean, that's him lying. Sorry, I can't resist. I got to interject here. He's lying there. He's lying. Right? 100%. 100% he's lying. We said, we heard this all. 100%. Yeah, that's about as high as it can go, guys. Just FYI, sorry, it's the file I'm using. But, it is, let me see. Okay, that's going to be, it's cranked. Okay. So let me just give a second here. I'm gonna turn this up. Oh, MN, thank you. Welcome to the channel. And David, thank you so much for the support and kind words. Okay, I'm gonna see if this is better now. Let me get this open here. I wanted to make sure you guys can hear it.
Violence and vandalism have absolutely no place in our country and no place in our movement. Making America great again has always been about defending the rule of law, supporting the men and women of law enforcement, and upholding our nation's most sacred traditions and values. Mob violence goes against everything I believe in and everything our movement stands for. No true supporter of mine could ever endorse political violence. No true supporter of mine could ever disrespect law enforcement or our great American flag. No true supporter of mine could ever threaten or harass their fellow Americans.
Okay, so what he's saying there, okay, yeah, you might have to just change the volume. I'm not going to speak with it. Yeah, sorry guys, it's all my volumes are cranked and I don't want to blow up my speaker. So it's just the audio, but I'm not going to speak during it so you guys can adjust the volume. But basically, you guys, if you can't hear that, what Donald Trump is saying is that anyone who did what they did at the Capitol is not a true supporter of mine. Which is absolutely 100% him selling out his own supporters. 100%. Because Donald Trump, in that meeting, he said, go down there. And even during it, like during when it was happening, remember, he put that video out. And he said, you know, you got to be peaceful. You got to be respectful to the law enforcement. We love the police, but you're good. I love you. You're perfect. You're great. He's talking to them like they were good boys and girls. You remember that? You remember that video? Like, it was one of the last things he was allowed to post on Twitter, was that video. Right? He they were like, and he was like, "You're great." And so that was him saying that to them. And now, literally a week later, basically, almost to the hour, he puts this video out, and he's like, anyone who did anything that I encouraged isn't a real supporter of mine. So there were people that went into that building and did crimes for him. Whether we're talking about the minor stuff, like, just going in, like trespassing, whatever, or we're talking about literally like felony stuff. They did it for him. There should be no doubt in anyone's mind that even if, like, this doesn't meet the legal definition of incitement, even if the people there were doing it for Trump, the flags, there was a lot of flags from a lot of awful movements and organizations, but there were Trump flags and MAGA hats and MAGA flags, and people were saying the president told us to come here. Exactly, Ali Tucky, I love you, you're special. Right? So yeah, so if you're a Trump supporter here, because I know sometimes I get Trump supporters show up on my stream, like, how does this make you feel? In all honesty, I'm like, how does that make you feel? Because these people are loyal Trump supporters. They are loyal. I bet you almost all of them were donors. Almost all of them, if like there was a rally nearby when Trump was doing his cross-country rallies, that they went to his rallies even though with COVID it's not safe. I guarantee you these were his most dedicated supporters. The people in there was Trump's base. They are Trump's base. And he's selling them out here. They're selling them out.
If you do any of these things, you are not supporting our movement. You're attacking it.
Black Lives Matter and left-wing groups are not 100 times worse. That's stupid, and you're wrong. I'm sorry. Did going back to 2016 even, did they try to disrupt the count of the Electoral College certification? They didn't. There is no comparison. What this was, and I've talked about this, and AOC talked about this, is white dominance politics in action. You have a movement of people. Sorry, I'm going to get big, but I can't let it go by that people are daring to compare this to actual protest. Right? I can't. Right? Jesse says, almost sent you $200. Our anti-SJWs complicit. We could talk a bit about that, Jesse. About how some people, I think, are downplaying this just as like a reflexive own the libs moment. We could talk about that in a second. We'll talk about that maybe after this clip. But I think that's a good question. If you sent me 200, I likely would have asked what was up, Jesse. I'm like, oh, geez, did you win the lottery or something? But no, look, let's be real. There's no comparison. What happened here is that everything is stacked in the deck of a traditional Trump supporter. White rural voters have a tremendous gerrymandered and constitutional advantage in the vote. They win even when they lose, unless they lose big. That's how it is. Biden won by 7 million and about 50,000 votes. I think it was 41 in the right place. Flipping would have made it a 269 Electoral College tie, which would have went to Trump because he has more delegations. 7 million. 7 million. It's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And so the Senate's rigged for them too, because the Senate gives 2 senators to states with 500,000, 600,000 people, and gives 2 senators to the biggest states. Now, not all the big states are blue states, and not all the small states are red states, but most of the small states are red. Most of them. Right? The small to small medium states. And they rig it whenever they can with the gerrymandering for the House seats. And when they still lose, they storm the goddamn Capitol. There is no comparison. There's none. There is no comparison. None. And in between elections, this is beyond Trump, Republicans try to systematically disenfranchise black people, poor people, young people, anyone that demographically is unlikely to vote for them. I don't see the Democrats trying to disenfranchise rural white people. I don't see that. I don't see Democrats trying to take away the vote from old white men. Have they? Have they done that? No, they haven't done that. Look, I hate the Democratic Party more than most people. But the Republican attack on democracy before, during, and after elections is another level. It's another level. And when they lose, they stack the deck, and then when they still lose, they riot. And that's what you saw. Left-wing groups, Black Lives Matter, there's no comparison. None at all. None at all. And remember this, because this is the height of richness. Do you guys remember Charlie Kirk, Tommy Lahren, all these AstroTurf ghouls who were like back in September, October, were like, oh, we're not going to lose this election. We're not going to lose. Trump's going to win. But if we lose, Trump supporters are just going to accept the result, go back home, work hard, and be good American citizens. Whereas left-wingers, if they lose, they're going to tear everything up and blah, 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 blah. And they invaded the Capitol, guys. Charlie Kirk paid for some of the buses that day. Deleted that tweet. I wonder why. I wonder why he deleted a tweet about organizing buses to the event that just so happened to turn into an insurrection against democracy. I wonder why. No, here's the thing, guys. These are real conservatives. These are real conservatives. Trump has the support of the vast majority of the Republican Party. This is the Republican Party. It might not be the entirety of the party, but it is the Republican Party. The people there were representative of Trump's voting base. You had it all. You had some blue-collar Trump supporters. You also had rich people flying in on private jets. You had business owners that were getting the business owner subsidy. You had Olympic athletes. You had veterans. You had off-duty goddamn cops. Off-duty cops beating up Capitol Police. It was representative of the Trump base. 100%. 100%. This is conservatism. If you want to change it, you can change it. You want to, you can. They had this debate. I'm on a rant now, but we're going to get back to this video. They had this debate after 2012. And this is what's crazy. And it worked for them in 2016, so what the heck do I know? But after 2012, when they lost, they went to the drawing board. And you know what? They looked to Canada. And they looked to the Conservative Party in Canada. I know this because, I'm Canadian. And they said, how did the Canadian Conservatives in 2011, they won a majority government, which is a full victory. In Canada, you can have partial victories where you win the most seats, but you don't win over half the seats. So like you're the governing party, but you can't pass everything you want because other parties need to have a say. It's kind of like if you had a 3-party system and you had 45 seats in the Senate, but the other 2 parties had the other 55. So you have power, but you still need cooperation. For example, that's the comparison. And so they won a majority government. And they did it with a lot of rural white conservatives, no doubt. Like, no doubt. That same thing in Canada. Rural white people vote conservative for the most part. But they won it with, Asian Canadians in Toronto suburbia. That's where they won it. That's where they won the majority. That's where they turned their minority into a majority government. And so conservatives in the United States were like, how are they getting minority groups to vote conservative? And they tapped into social conservative values. A lot of them were small business owners. So they went into like, we are the party of entrepreneurs. And Republicans, for a while, were like, maybe we can learn something here. Why can't we create a multiracial conservatism? And then they just said, screw that. And they went with Trump. They went with Trump. They went with the politics of white dominance. And they won an election because of a broken system, but it caught them this time.
And you are attacking our country. We cannot tolerate it. Tragically, over the course of the past year, made so difficult because of COVID-19, we have seen political violence spiral out of control. We have seen too many riots, too many mobs, too many acts of intimidation and destruction. It must stop. Whether you are on the right or on the left, a Democrat or a Republican, there is never a justification for violence.
Again, the false equivalency, right? The false equivalency here. Ridiculous.
No excuses, no exceptions. America is a nation of laws. Those who engaged in the attacks last week will be brought to justice. Now I am asking everyone who...
We got some justice today. This guy who caused the attack got impeached. It's not enough justice, but it's a start.
...who has ever believed in our agenda to be thinking of ways to ease tensions,
people, let me...
and help to promote peace in our country. There has been reporting that additional demonstrations are being planned in the coming days, both here in Washington and across the country. I have been briefed by the U.S. Secret Service on the potential threats. Every American deserves to have their voice heard in a respectful and peaceful way. That is your First Amendment right. But I cannot emphasize that there must be no violence, no law breaking, and no vandalism of any kind. Everyone must follow our laws and obey the instructions of law enforcement. I have directed federal agencies to use all necessary resources to maintain order. In Washington, D.C., we are bringing in...
Like, again, what, like, he's trying to cast himself as the man of law and order, but, like, who believes that? Who believes that? With what we saw, and with how he acts and comports himself. Who believes that?
Thousands of
no one believes that.
National Guard members to secure the city and ensure that a transition can occur safely and without incident. Like all of you, I was shocked and deeply saddened by the calamity at the Capitol last week. I want to...
You weren't shocked. Guys, he's saying he's shocked. What? He's not shocked. Here's what we know. He gave a speech Wednesday morning. That was where Rudy Giuliani and he and others did the whole, we're gonna talk about trial by combat, that speech, right? That's what he was saying. Like, we're gonna talk about this. Donald Trump is saying you gotta be strong. If you're not strong, they're gonna take your country. And then he's like, we're gonna march down to the Capitol. He doesn't go to the Capitol though. He doesn't go. He makes a conscious decision to go back to the White House. He goes back to the White House, and from what we know, he was watching it transpire on television. So Donald Trump was on TV watching this happen. They asked him to put out a statement. They asked him to put out a statement because they needed to, so he could hopefully calm his supporters down. Stop the ones in there or stop more from going in, clear it out a little bit so that, first responders could get in and out, things like that. And he wouldn't at first, nor did they immediately send National Guard reinforcements. This was all on Trump. The statement he put out, the one that we referenced earlier, that, stop being mean to the police, but I love you, you're perfect, you're great. That was apparently coaxed out of him. He did not choose to do that. He was compelled to do that. I don't know who talked to him. It wasn't Ivanka or wasn't Melania, excuse me. She was busy doing her photo shoot. But it was like somebody talked to him and convinced him to do that. Somebody did. And then he did that. But as people are noting, he was loving what he was seeing. He loved it. Michael Antonsu. Let me know if I said that right. So, sorry if I didn't, Michael. Thank you for the support. Lanith31, thank you for becoming a channel member. I really appreciate the support and your kindness in that. And David, they said they should make Trump denounce QAnon next. That would be great. That would be great if he did. I don't know if he will. I don't know if he's going to do that. He wouldn't before a debate during a town hall, as we remember. But who knows? I don't think he will, though. David, I'm not very optimistic. So, he wanted this to happen. Well, yeah, people are noting this here. The governor of Virginia, who is a Republican, or excuse me, the governor of Virginia, who's a Democrat, I believe, but also the governor of Maryland, who's a Republican, they offered to help, as did the mayor of D.C. They all offered help in their own ways, because D.C. is really weird jurisdictionally. The D.C. is a federal property where the capital itself is distinct from D.C., the city, which is also federal, but it still has its own municipal structures. And then D.C. is also basically weaved in both into sort of Maryland and Virginia. So it's really complicated, but in any sense, there was a lot of help offered from all of these jurisdictions, and it wasn't accepted immediately. Stephen Jajo says, I suck. Thank you for the constructive criticism, Stephen. Really helping to make the channel better. Get back to the clip.
Hundreds of millions of incredible American citizens who have responded to this moment with calm, moderation, and grace. We will get through this challenge just like we always do. I also want to say a few words about the unprecedented assault on free speech we have seen in recent days. These are tense and difficult times. The efforts to censor, cancel, and blacklist our fellow citizens are wrong, and they are dangerous.
There's no censorship here. Look, I find it very ironic that supposed lovers of capitalism, which that's what the Democratic Party is a capitalist party too, don't get me wrong, but the supposed lovers of capitalism, the Republicans, all of a sudden now want, in essence, to control the private speech of corporations and the private conduct of corporations. Their argument is that, it's a First Amendment violation, but it isn't. Jason Kennedy, thank you so much for your frequently visiting Black Cat. Thank you so much for the support. Love to see it. But no, I mean, fundamentally, that's First Amendment speech covers not only, what you can say, but it also covers the ability of corporations to sort of define their own speech as well. And that's both positive and negative, what they will say, but also what they won't say. And there's also freedom of association, but freedom of association also allows you, within certain bounds, to choose who you do not associate with as well. Right? And so, they don't want to associate with Trump or with some of Trump's supporters. Now, of course, the vast majority of Republicans and Trump supporters, they didn't get banned, and nor should they. But Trump did. And it wasn't for his speech. It wasn't for any of his ideology. They wanted to ban Trump for his ideology. They would have done it in 2015, if not earlier. They banned him because of his specific words that had specific consequences, and rightfully so. Michael says, "My God, you said my name right." I'm guessing that maybe it's not a common occurrence. Often I'm surprised when people say my name right the first time, so I can definitely empathize with you and relate with you there. Anakazi says, "I love how Trump always reads in a monotone and pouts while reading speeches written for him that he doesn't want to give." Yeah, that's a great point, Anakazi. That's a great point. That's a really great point. Because, like, look, I'm not a Trump supporter, but when that man is on, he's a good performer. When he wants to say something, when he's giving like a rally, he's a good performer. He can work a crowd. He can give a speech. He can do a mixture of reading and impromptu stuff. I can see why some people find him engaging. But you're right, when he's reading some of these things that he either doesn't care about or doesn't agree with, and they're like, "Sir, you gotta read this thing," he does not sell it. He does not sell it. And like, yeah, now he probably especially doesn't give a damn because he knows he's done in like a week. But like, even before, you could see it. That's a great observation. It's something I've noticed before, but I don't think I've ever articulated it. So thanks for that.
What is needed now is for us to listen to one another, not to silence one another. All of us can choose by our actions to rise above the rancor and...
See, again, this is what's interesting here. People in Trump's sphere are absolutely hypocritical about free speech. They think that free speech is for them, not for minorities or for anybody that disagrees with them. Remember this, that Donald Trump is making a big deal because he's not allowed to post characters on a private website after he clearly broke their rules. Now, let's remember this, that Trump, as well as other Republicans like Tom Cotton, for instance, they wanted to effectively take school funding away from any school that taught any material from the 1619 Project. Now look, that project isn't perfect. There's been a lot of criticisms of it. But in general, what it argues is that the enslavement of African Americans and the subsequent racial injustice against them, which started in 1619, like that first year of it in the United States, like when it was still a British colony, but still part of the long British American history of this continent, that kicked off that 400-year tradition of racial inequality that America could not exist without. And Trump, because it said those things, wanted to effectively ban it from schools. He didn't say ban it, but what he said was any school that taught from that material, this was something he was proposing, I don't know if it got implemented, would lose their funding. What sounds more like censorship to you? A private company restricting access to its service based on somebody clearly violating the terms of service, or a federal government official, a senator and a president, telling schools that if they teach a certain material, written in many cases by scholars that have peer-reviewed credentials, that your schools will lose funding? What sounds more like censorship to you? To me, it seems like Trump and Tom Cotton are the ones trying to censor people, if anything. Maybe you don't think that's censorship because you're saying, they're technically not censoring it, they're just tying funding to it. But to me, that seems a lot more like censorship. To me. Remember, this is the man that wanted to create the Institute for Patriotic Education. The government would define what was patriotic and force schools to teach that. That's 1984 stuff. That's 1984 stuff. Right? So, spare me. People like they're like alt-right people have admitted on this website when they do live streams that like they talk about free speech and they talk about those sorts of things now, but if they should ever get power, like if they should ever consolidate their power significantly, then what they would do effectively is silence all free speech. That's what they've said. People like Trump would ban free speech the second it no longer served them. I guarantee you. They are bad-faced actors.
Find common ground and shared purpose. We must focus on advancing the interests of the whole nation, delivering the miracle vaccines, defeating the pandemic, rebuilding the economy, protecting our national security, and upholding the rule of law. Today I am calling on all Americans to overcome the passions of the moment and join together as one American people. Let us choose to move forward united for the good of our families, our communities, and our country. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
So that was one of Trump's last addresses he's going to make as president.
I want to speak to you tonight.
Sorry, I'm just going to close this. So, yeah, like, I have a couple. Next, I want to show you this next video. We're not going to play it right now, but we're going to get it queued up. And so this is going to be Marjorie Taylor Greene saying she wants to impeach Biden. So if there's any doubt that this is all going to go away when Trump is gone, you're kidding yourself, because this is just getting started in some ways. But basically, what you're seeing right now from Trump is like, in essence, he's trying to push forward this narrative that like, oh, we're trying to build some unity and bring the country together. But like it's all BS. It's all BS. Here's the thing. Here's the thing about Republicans. At least right now. They have made a decision. Maybe they'll change their mind after this election. But it was so close that they might not. They might roll the dice again. They have made a decision to not govern and run based on the needs and desires and wants of the majority. Now, the Democrats don't either, really. Because the Democrats they didn't run on Medicare for all, they didn't run on a Green New Deal, etc. But the Democrats need to win a majority of the people to win, and often more. The Republicans don't. So the Republicans have made a decision, and they've said to themselves, we have lost the popular vote in basically every election for almost a generation and a half. 92, 96, 2000, they won the election, but they lost the popular vote. 2004, they won both. 2008, they lost. 2012, they lost. 2016, they won, but lost the popular vote. And 2020, they lost. So in my lifetime, and I was born in 1987, they've won 1988 and 2004. Those are the only times the Republicans have won the popular vote. So what they've said to themselves, they've made a bargain. And they've said, look, we're not winning a majority of the people. So we have a choice. We can either change how we run and how we govern and how we talk, or we can try everything in our power to rig the system and to keep it rigged. And they've chosen the latter. That's what they've done, at least thus far. Again, maybe they'll change. Maybe there'll be a reckoning. Maybe those sorts of things. Right? That's something that we're really considering here, that they need to consider. But David Frum, and I am not a fan of David Frum. He's a monster, what he did in Iraq, or what he did to cause Iraq. But he made a great point when he said that conservatives, when it comes to a point where conservatives have to choose between democracy and ideology, they're not going to choose democracy. They're going to choose their ideology. So Republicans have made their choice. So when Trump says, I want to bring the country together, I want to govern on behalf of all Americans. No, you don't. You have made a conscious decision that you want to win elections winning less than half the vote. That is a decision you've made. You figure that because the way the Senate is structured, how gerrymandered Republicans' districts are, and how gerrymander-friendly Republican states are, and how the Electoral College skews Republican, that you are perpetually running minority-driven politics. You're seeking minority rule. And I don't mean by that racial minorities. I mean, you're seeking minority rule, a perpetual situation where a minority of the population governs over a majority of the population. Right? That's what you're seeking. That's what you're seeking. And that's in essence like what the Republicans have tried to do. Now, will that work? Who knows? Will it keep working? Who knows? They have won some elections like that. But like the reality is they might not keep winning it. Michael says, love the show, almost 70 years old. Michael, thank you so much for the support again, and thank you for letting us know. I mean, look, my viewership is actually pretty balanced. My most common viewership category, I believe, is 25 to 34. YouTube gives like a demographic breakdown. But I do have a fair bit of viewers for people above 50, above 60 on this YouTube channel, which is nice because I think it's refreshing to see some older folks that are, whether left or right, whether it's they're watching less MSNBC, less CNN, less Fox News, and more independent media. And I know it's harder for a lot of older folks because when they grew up, they didn't always have, there was no YouTube. There wasn't these sources. They only had, the nightly news and then the networks. So I think it's great to see older people, senior citizens watch independent media. So thank you for the support and thank you for being here. So I want to get back to, John Barlick says Marjorie Taylor Greene is a Karen. She is indeed. I want to play this clip. So if for those who don't know the context here, the lady on the screen here is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She is a newly elected congresswoman, and she is a supporter of various far-right conspiracies and movements, and is probably, it's hard, she hasn't had a voting record yet, probably is going to end up being one of the more conservative members of the House. Right? And so she's made a big deal about everything from, being armed at all times. She's made a big deal about supporting Trump even after the election's been over. She's made a big deal of saying that she's going to take down the squad, like she's the right-wing antidote to AOC, which is ridiculous. All these sorts of things. And she's really trying to make a crazy name for herself. And so this guy is Greg Kelly. Now, this channel is Newsmax. If you don't know what Newsmax is basically one of the two networks that's sort of risen to fill the gap of Fox News. That Fox News, when some people on Fox News, not all people on Fox News, but when some people on Fox News decided that they were going to recognize the results of the election, a lot of traditional Fox viewers that were Trump supporters got really mad, right? They got really mad, and they were like, well, I'm not going to put up with this. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to support this mess. And what they did was they started watching OAN and Newsmax, right? And so Fox's viewership has declined quite significantly in certain demographics and at certain times because of this. And so more and more, not like right-wing Republicans, the more anti-establishment, quote-unquote, Republicans, you're going to see them give interviews less on Fox and more on Newsmax. Right? And so what she's saying here is, this is her on Newsmax, and this is her saying, I'm going to impeach Biden. So I'm going to play this clip for you.
And yes, 10 or so Republicans did this as well. We'll have more on that in a bit. Congresswoman, I understand, though, you have something pressing, something important, and something new you'd like to share with everybody.
Yes, I would like to announce on behalf of the American people, we have to make sure that our leaders are held accountable. We cannot have a president of the United States that is willing to abuse the power of the office of the presidency and be easily bought off by foreign governments, foreign Chinese energy companies, Ukrainian energy companies. So on January 21st, I will be filing articles of impeachment on Joe Biden.
Wow. Articles of impeachment on Joe Biden on his first full day as president. I'm looking at Hunter, and yes, 10
So
or
if
so
you guys, basically, I'm going to have to look at how I do my audio, because some people are saying they can hear it, some people aren't. I'm going to take a look at the audio. But what you heard right there is, in essence, Marjorie Taylor Greene, a new member of Congress, crazy, already going to impeach Joe Biden. And look, I'm not a fan of Joe Biden. I'm not. I am not a fan of Joe Biden. But we have to be clear with ourselves and acknowledge that this is clearly like some kind of vengeance. I think her general argument is he's being treasonous, quote unquote, because he and Hunter Biden and Biden's administration are going to be in the pockets of China or some such thing. I'm not trying to legitimize it, but I think that's what she's going to argue. And so he, on day one, she says, is officially going to be impeachable because he broke the rules around China or some such thing. Right? That's what they're arguing. Now, I don't know what to say about this because it's ridiculous. Look, if Biden deserves to be impeached, he will be impeached. But I don't necessarily see anything that he should be impeached for on day one. Like, he's got to be given a chance. Now, I'll be clear. With Trump, if anything, Trump should have been impeached on day one. Trump broke the emoluments clause on his first day of office. Trump was already enriching himself and his private businesses and his family off being president. On day one, Trump could have been impeached. And it would have been legitimate. It would have been politically fraught, but it would have been constitutionally legitimate. Because the man refused to put his businesses in a private trust. They were using Trump hotels to have meetings. Even during the transition period, they were doing that. And so he was, even on day one, using the office as president to enrich himself. Simple as that. He could have been impeached on day one. But he wasn't. He wasn't because unless it's absolutely awful, impeaching somebody on day one isn't going to pass the political smell test. It isn't. Here, though, without any real reason, she wants to impeach him. Now, is this going to get any significant support? I don't think so. I mean, first of all, the Republicans do not control the House. And so you can't impeach without controlling the House. And second of all, many Republicans will not sign on to this. But she might, like, if she actually goes through with it, she might get a few dozen Republicans to sign on to this. She might. She might get a few dozen Republicans to sign on. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about that, but that's something that's happening. Now, I mean, one thing that we have to really consider is that all of this is being done right now with a view to 2022 and 2024. Right? Yeah, and the Half-Black Reaper, you're right. Like the 25th Amendment should have been used against Trump, but his cabinet wouldn't do it. The cabinet people that might have done it chose to resign instead, leaving it in a position where the people left were in some cases the most loyal to Trump, meaning they would never use it against him. Yeah, the 25th Amendment was a tool to use in this moment. It's unfortunate it wasn't, but you play the cards you're dealt with. So impeachment isn't quick compared. Laugh Out Liberty says, Dem have set this precedent, different party impeach. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. After we recall, Bill Clinton was impeached by Republicans in the mid-90s. And I would suggest that while what he did was inappropriate, you might argue that impeachment was politically motivated more than it was constitutionally motivated. I would suggest. Right? Or I'm not sure what year it was, but in his second term, I believe he was impeached. Excuse me. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. I think here it's very clearly that Donald Trump deserved to be impeached, and he was impeached. 10 Republicans at least agreed. And I assume you're going to get at least 6 or 7 in the Senate, maybe more, that will agree. It was the right thing to do. But the fact of the matter is, this is all about 2022 and 2024. 100%. 2022 and 2024 is what it's all about right now. Because all of these people are taking bets on where the Republican Party is going to be. Will the Republican Party be a Trump party, or will they be a post-Trump party? And how not Trump is post-Trump, for lack of a better term. I'm going to grab some water. I'll just be right back. And so what I mean by that is, some people have said, look, I am making a conscious effort to line myself up with Trump. I'm going to defend Trump. I'm going to say ridiculous things about this election because I think that will give me a great chance to run for president, or maybe I'm going to run for Senate, or maybe I worry about a primary and so I'm going to protect myself. Or maybe I'm not ready to do any of those things yet, but this brings me donations and really connects me to that movement. And so if I'm like Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm a rookie congresswoman, I'm probably not going to see bigger office yet, but maybe this sets me up for 3-4 cycles down the road to run for Senate or governor or whatever. That's what we're talking about here. And you have other Republicans who have, I think, said to themselves, I think that because of all of this, Trumpism is not going to necessarily be as popular in a few years, and so I am going to move on. I'm going to move on, and I'm going to basically, for lack of a better term, distance myself from Trumpism and hope that in 2022 and beyond that the Republican brand will shift and I will be in a better position. And so that's what you're seeing here. When you see somebody like this suggest, right? When you see someone like this suggest that I'm going to impeach Joe Biden on day one, right? I'm going to impeach Joe Biden on day one. Then what they're doing is sending a signal to the Trump movement. Like, that's what they're doing. 100%. Like, it has to be, right? Because if they're not, like, then I don't know why you would do it. I don't know why you would do it. Couple people were saying in the comments, if you're new to the stream, click the subscribe button. It's a daily politics channel from a left perspective, from a progressive perspective. And if you click the like button, that'd be great. Helps more people find the stream and join the discussion, which has been, for the most part, really good so far. So love to see more people on board. So that's why I think you have to look for these sorts of things. This impeachment isn't for us. It's something for the right-wing movement. Something for the right-wing movement. Well, that's the thing. He says Marjorie Taylor Greene will not get past her first term. It depends, Alan, right? She might not. Her district is pretty red. And so it might be the case that she'll continue to be safe in her fairly red district. And if her district has a lot of Trump supporters, then there's no better way to secure yourself than to stake your claim as being a Trump supporter. So she was, for instance, one of the people on that night where they certified the results after the Capitol Hill events. She was one of the people that got up and said, I object to these results. And she didn't have a senator to back her, but she was one of the people that on that night stood up and said, I object. Trump supporters will remember that. And if they continue to dominate the Republican Party, and they might, they'll remember her. And I think that's what this is about. That's what this is about. All of this right now is about inter-party jockeying. Right? That's why you have Ben Sasse and Josh Hawley, who I think are both running for president, staking out different sides on this. Where one of them is like, I'm gonna defend Trump no matter what, and the other is like, I'm gonna call out Trump when he's lying to you, and I think he should be impeached probably. They're staking out their claims. And Shay asks if there's punishment for introducing nonsense bills. To my knowledge, no. I mean, I guess the punishment would be if your colleagues don't take you seriously, then you won't be able to introduce things later. I'm not sure. Let me see. People asking this. Let me look this. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's look at her district. Her district is, okay, she is a member from Georgia's 14th. And Georgia's 14th district is R plus 27. So to put that in perspective, in her district, presidentially, Trump won 73-25. In 2018, Kemp beat Abrams 75-23. In 2016, Trump won 75-22 against Clinton. And in 2012, Romney won 73-25 against Obama. So to put that in that sense, it is incredibly Republican. Not the reddest district, but it is among the redder districts in the country. So odds are, if she is going to lose, it would be via a primary. And given that Trump did quite well there, my instinct is that if she ties herself to Trump, she's going to find herself perpetually safe, as long as the Trump brand is strong. So that's what she's trying to do here. She's trying to say, you guys love Trump in my district. I love Trump. I only need to keep the Republicans in my district happy. That's the only people that matter. My district does not matter in the general election. And because in primaries not everyone votes, I only need to keep the most dedicated Republicans in my part of Georgia happy. And I will have a Congress seat. And so that's what she's doing. She's leaving no doubt in anyone's mind. Don't you dare primary me in my Trump district. There's no one more pro-Trump than me. Samantha Sider is saying, is the district gerrymandered? And I'm not exactly sure. I'm not super knowledgeable about Georgia's districts, but looking at it, honestly, Georgia districts don't look as absurd as some other states. Maybe it's gerrymandered, but it's nothing like here here's here's the link to the page. It's nothing like Dan Crenshaw's district in Texas. So if it is gerrymandered, it's not as nearly as gerrymandered as other districts. Samantha Sider asks, do you think Trump will pardon himself or his family? I'm not sure. One thing about it is, I think there's no doubt in my mind that he could pardon his family and those close to him. And I think he might. But I think one challenge is that pardoning himself might get disputed. There's never been a test about the limits of presidential pardon power in that context. Now, the Constitution basically says you can pardon for almost anything except for impeachment. So if somebody gets impeached, you can't pardon away an impeachment because the impeachment overrides the pardon power, which is to create a situation where someone gets impeached and the president just pardons them. That wouldn't be kosher. But there's no limit saying the president can pardon anyone so long as they are not family or whatever. That exception doesn't exist. Right? People are asking what a second impeachment means, Bogey. Basically, it's just he was impeached the first time, and then the Senate did not agree to hold up the impeachment and convict him of it, so he kept his job, but he was still impeached. And so he was impeached again for a different set of issues today. And he remains the only president in American history, therefore, to be impeached twice. Bush was impeached, Clinton was impeached, Nixon was about to be impeached but wasn't, and a president, I believe it was Johnson in the 1800s, was impeached. No president has ever been removed via impeachment. Nixon likely would have been, but again, resigned before the process really got underway, where the voting had started. And so he's been impeached a second time. There's no additional penalty to being impeached a second time necessarily. It's just he's been impeached on two separate occasions. Yeah. Whereas if he got removed from office back at the beginning of the year, it would have been different, right? He would have been impeached and then removed, and then he would have been out of office as soon as the impeachment kicked in, and then he would have been done. Now, the debate, if he gets impeached here, he'll likely be removed from office if he's still in office, and if not, he'll likely be prevented from running again. Because the penalty you can assess on someone is they're removed from office, but you can also add additional penalties like taking away some of the perks they got as being president, and then also they can be removed. They can be prevented from running for office again. So he wouldn't be allowed to run for federal office anymore, either president or any other federal position. So I could see himself pardoning his family. I could see himself pardoning himself, but there's a couple reservations there. One, there is the potential legal debate about whether Trump can pardon himself. Like, is he able to? Is he allowed to? And they don't know really. It's an active debate about whether Trump can pardon himself. The wording seems to suggest that he can because there's no limits, but I've seen some people suggest that the word grant implies giving it to someone else. To grant a pardon is to give it to another party, so you cannot grant it to yourself. Then again, some others have suggested that the word grant in certain contexts can mean one granting something to oneself. So there would be an actual debate about if he pardoned himself, would the pardon be legitimate? People are saying there's a new video of Trump on CNN. Sorry guys, it's hard for me to see things in the comments when they're moving really fast, so I'm going to try to take a look. I'm going to see if I can find this video here. Which, if somebody... Let me see. Is it the video? Okay, I don't know what video people are talking about, but it's maybe give me some more to go there, because I don't know if it's the video we already watched. I'm not sure. People are saying, can he be banned from running again with a 51 Senate majority? No, he cannot. What happens is impeachment requires 2/3 majority in the Senate. And then okay, to be clear, Poe loves Ravens. The way it works is if you're impeached, it requires 2/3 majority. Then, by a simple majority after that, they can decide to bar him from running. So, for instance, to impeach him outright, you just need 2/3. Then to levy additional penalties, then it goes back to a simple 50+1 majority. So yeah, it would likely be 51 senators in that case. Let me see if I can find this. And I also have to find it on a source that would not get me copyright struck. People often have a hard time sharing links in the stream, right? If people have a link to it, try to share the link with me, and I can maybe get that. Okay, so basically, that's what we're looking at here. If he pardons himself, it might get challenged. Another one to look at is that if he was to pardon himself, it might make him more vulnerable in civil lawsuits. Because, one, fair or not, no, he has definitely been impeached, Sabian. To be impeached is simply to be impeached by the House. For the removal, you need to have the impeachment basically confirmed by the Senate. But once a majority of the House votes to impeach, you are impeached. Bill Clinton was impeached. Simple. That's the way it is. I know it's confusing, but he has been impeached. He might not lose his job over it, but he was impeached. Yeah, if mods have that link, if somebody sees it, let me know. Because I don't want to just go digging while we're on stream here. I don't have that link right now. And it's not popping up on my chat here. We did watch that video where he was asking for calm. And we watched that. We did watch that. So basically, if he impeaches himself, if he pardons himself, he does open himself up to a potential scenario where it weakens his ability to defend himself in civil cases. Because one of the arguments you can make in certain cases about not answering questions is pleading the fifth, and you have a reasonable belief that you would incriminate yourself. But if you've pardoned yourself for certain crimes, you may have less of an ability to use that Fifth Amendment. It also makes you look guilty. So one of the things Trump's been warned about is pardoning yourself could make it more difficult for you long term, right? For other cases. In addition, there's a real debate about how much a pardon for Trump has value, because most of the legal things we know he's facing, like that we know that are coming up, are at the state level. And Trump cannot pardon himself for state crimes. Can't do it, right? So if like Trump commits a state offense that's under the jurisdiction of state officials in New York, which is what's happening, then he can't pardon himself. Only the governor of New York could pardon him in that context. Sort of like how if you're a criminal and you're in state prison, the president cannot pardon you. The president can only pardon you if you're in a federal prison, right? Like, like that's how that works. Well, that's another debate. First, a charge must be filed. That's a debate, Jimmy, because Gerald Ford gave a preemptive pardon to Richard Nixon. He said, I am pardoning Nixon for basically anything he did under federal jurisdiction for his entire time as president. Meaning, if something comes up later and they charge him with it, they can't do it because I've pardoned him. Remember, Nixon was not charged with anything when he left. So the argument there at least is, under that precedent, presidents can issue preemptive pardons. You've also seen other general pardons that went to people before they would necessarily be charged with something. Jimmy Carter gave a pardon to everyone who draft dodged Vietnam. One of the older presidents, when most Mormons decided to ditch polygamy, the president at the time gave a pardon to every Mormon man that at one point had practiced polygamy, even if they had never been charged with it first. And I believe there was a general pardon given to Confederate soldiers of the Civil War. All of these pardons came in many cases before they were charged. So that hasn't been tested in court, I don't believe, but Trump would have the power to give a preemptive pardon to someone. The debate at the time, though, no, but Jimmy, you can issue a preemptive pardon. They've done it. Nixon got one from Ford. You can do it. And it has not been challenged in the Supreme Court. It does not apply to state crimes. Like Nixon's pardon, he was not charged with anything. Ford basically said anything you might charge him with while he was president, he's pardoned. So don't bother. That was the point, to let the country move on. You can agree with Ford or disagree with him if he was right to do it, but you can do that. So that's basically how it goes. David says Gerald Ford ate nachos and drank beer with Homer. He did indeed. And so, in essence, we don't necessarily know how far Trump's pardon power could go. He might try to pardon himself. He might not. We'll have to wait and see. My instinct is that his kids are going to get a pardon, and I don't know if he's going to pardon himself. I don't know. He wants to. He definitely wants to. But he's not sure, I think, about the consequences and about whether it'll hold up. And in fact, the reading I've done on this over the last few days is that Nixon asked around back in the 70s about if he could pardon himself or not. And the definition at the time, the Office of Legal Opinion at the White House suggested no. Now, again, that's not a court. That was their best opinion. And one of the suggestions for why Nixon resigned was because he could not pardon himself. He felt he couldn't, or he felt he would try and it wouldn't work, or what have you. So by resigning and making Ford president, he knew that Ford could pardon him. And he did. And he never faced charges for what he did or didn't do as president. And of course, he was never found guilty in a court of law. So I don't know what Trump's going to do. I have no earthly idea. But he is definitely considering pardoning himself. Definitely. 100%. Would not shock me the least if Trump pardoned himself at all. Yeah. But no, I mean, I definitely think that he's considering it. Now, one thing I really want to touch on here is, like, how the Democrats have to be careful playing this, because they need to seize this moment. Right now, the Republicans are divided, and the Republicans don't know how to go forward, and the Republicans have this millstone around their neck named Donald Trump. Right? And it's going to be an issue for them. And the Democrats, especially Joe Biden, cannot allow this moment to just float by. And I really worry that that's what's going to happen. For those that may not have seen it, I did a video, and I'll grab a link for you guys. Go check it out after the stream. I did a video this past weekend on this, where I talked about Joe Biden, where he basically, people say, you want me to moderate the Canadian election debates? That wouldn't be fair. I'm an NDP partisan. I would not be neutral. I might be knowledgeable, but I don't think I would be neutral. And I am open enough to admit that, unlike some other moderators of famous Canadian debates. I can admit I'm a partisan and excuse myself. But that's neither here nor there. But in that video, there's a clip of Joe Biden at a press conference saying most Republicans are good and they want to move on from Trump and I want to work with them. And like, that's such bad politics. It's such bad politics. Connect the Republican Party to Trump and don't let them disconnect themselves from Trump. Like, don't let them do it. Like, because one of the projects for them in 4 years, or even in 2 years, but especially for the next time, is likely going to be, I'm not Donald Trump, whoever it is. You don't have to worry. I either reject Trump or I believe in some of the things that Trump does, but I respect democracy and I'm not going to enable Trumpism as a rhetorical or a organizational project or what have you. Right? And if you let Republicans can disconnect themselves, you're going to end up with a big problem. 80 million did not vote for Trump. 74 million voted for Trump, I believe, which is a lot. Which is a lot. Don't get me wrong. Trump got the second most votes ever. He did. He energized a lot of people. And this is one of the reasons I think Republicans are divided. Because Republicans know that Trump is deeply detested. That he's deeply detested and that he's not a good person. And the reason Biden got 81 million votes, whereas Trump only got 74 million, is because Donald Trump is so bad. But it's also the case that Donald Trump won this sort of white working class voters that Republicans don't often win. That candidates like Mitt Romney wouldn't win. You know? So the Republican Party isn't quite sure where to go. Yeah, maybe if they leave Trump, they'll start to get some of those suburbanite people back, but they might lose some of the white working class back to the Democrats. Some of the elements that they've lost. Trump did better among black voters and Hispanic voters than most Republicans. There's no guarantee that a more quote-unquote moderate Republican will do just as well or better. They might do worse. Maybe some people respond to Trump for his style more than his substance. Right? And so there really is a debate about where they're going to go. And Republicans don't know how to respond. And I worry that Democrats are doing the work for them by saying, oh, the Republican Party, they're moving towards being reasonable, and we just want to build unity and these sorts of things. And I think that's such a mistake. And another mistake that's definitely brewing is this impulse to just repeat the mistakes of 2010 and 2008, when the Democrats last had all three branches. Those of us who aren't very young would remember that, right? If you're really young, maybe you don't remember that, or you were like a teenager or something. But I remember that. The Democrats had all three branches, and they didn't use their power. They didn't do enough. They did not do enough to force through legislation that would be meaningful for the working class. Didn't do it. Right? Species. Biden will help build a Republican Party with his own two hands. No, honestly, I know that's like a joke, but maybe it's not. But like it really is true. Like, Biden seems to be dedicating himself to personally rehabilitating the Republican Party. Right? So I think there's a real risk, in my view, there's a real risk that they are not going to get enough done, and people are going to be disillusioned, and the midterms are going to go bad. And given how much how close the House is and how close the Senate is, it doesn't have to go really bad for them to lose both. Like in 2010, like, they had big majorities. So to lose in 2010, you had to lose big. Here, like, they don't actually have to lose big. Biden could only lose, 20, 30,000 votes and lose both houses in 2 years. So there's no room for error. Right? And so this is what Bernie's been saying. Like, Bernie Sanders has been saying that, like, and I don't know if I'm going to play it here, but Bernie Sanders, as the incoming chairman, Senate Budget Committee, has been saying this, right? Like, I'll drop the link. Some people are having audio problems, but this is a great little video. I'm going to play this video for you. I've decided, because I think it's fun, and I want to get this one for you right here. And it is a video of Bernie Sanders on Anderson Cooper, but somebody rigged up a nice little song, and it's really great. So I'm going to play this for you because I want you to hear it. If you're having audio issues, I've dropped you the link, so you should be able to hear it. And this is Bernie Sanders on Anderson Cooper a few nights ago, talking about what the Democrats did wrong. Don't spoil it for people. Somebody made up this really good little song here with auto-tune, and it's just funny. But Bernie in this clip is going to tell you what happened in 2010 and how that can't happen again. I'm going to play this for you.
Be very clear, as the incoming chairman, Senate Budget Committee, incoming chairman, Senate Budget Committee, incoming chairman, Senate Budget Committee, incoming chairman.
You're getting to see me dance here. This is rare, guys.
I remember what happened in 2010. The Democrats controlled the Senate, controlled the White House, controlled the House. Remember that? They had the power. Democrats got wiped out. Democrats got wiped out. They did not deliver for the American people. So what we have got to do right now, no ifs, buts, or maybe, is have an aggressive agenda that says we understand. We have to act and act now. They had the power. It's the Democrats' incoming chairman.
Senate Budget Committee, he's the incoming chairman. Senate Budget Committee, he's the incoming chairman. Senate Budget Committee,
incoming chairman. Senate
Budget Committee.
People can't pay their medical bills. People are going deeper into debt. People are facing addiction. Millions of people have lost their jobs. We know you're in pain. We have to act and act now. We have got to be bold. They had the power. It's the Democrats. Incoming chairman, Senate Budget Committee. 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 Incoming chairman,
Senate Budget Committee. It's the incoming chairman, Senate Budget Committee. Incoming chairman, Senate Budget Committee.
incoming chairman, Senate Budget Committee.
It's okay. So I'm not gonna lie. That's one of my favorite things of the past few days at least. And so that was great. You have the link there. So I dropped the link in the description in the chat. So go check that out. And that was just a fun little video. But I think it definitely illustrates the lesson at hand here. Right? Like, Bernie went on Anderson Cooper and said, look, the Democrats in 2010 had all this power and they didn't use it effectively. And look, I get it. Some of the Democrats were blue dogs. I get it. Like, you can't pass everything. But, like, for instance, they didn't even pass a higher minimum wage. I know it was increased in 2006, but why didn't they push it up another couple bucks? Why didn't they pass a law to make the minimum wage indexed to inflation? Right? Why didn't they do that at least? They didn't even get moderate labor reforms done, something the blue dogs might have supported. Right? We're not even talking about Medicare for all here, as much as that should have been done. They didn't even get other crucial things done. Like, they didn't, right? They didn't get even moderate progressive reforms done. And so voters were like, what's the point? And they didn't go vote in 2010. And the Democrats got punished. And they got punished in 2012 again. In 2014, they got punished again. Right? At the congressional level. I know Obama won in 2012, but they got punished at the congressional level. And the fact of the matter is, that happened because they weren't courageous enough. Right? Okay, so people are really divided. Some people are saying I'm on suicide watch because of the cringe. Other people saying that was a fantastic mix and they want to see me dance more. So the obvious answer is that the people saying that they want me to dance more are correct, and so I'm going to listen to them. So you might see me dance more from time to time.
No more dancing.
Brianna says no more dancing. So out of spite, I'm gonna dance 20% harder. But that is a that's what needs to happen here. And Bernie Sanders, as incoming chairman, Senate Budget Committee, will, I think, have a role to play in that. And I hope that there is a push. Now, Joe Biden, I don't trust Joe Biden, but at least rhetorically, he has said, I'm not that concerned about the deficit right now. I want to ensure we have strong stimulus. That's encouraging. Now, that could just mean corporate giveaways galore and nothing for the working class. So we have to be vigilant. But rhetorically, Joe Biden sounds actually different than Barack Obama right after Barack Obama won. And I think that that's actually kind of encouraging. We'll have to wait and see, though, how it works out. If somebody wants to clip that, they can clip that. That moment. I wouldn't mind that, I guess. Brianna right now, I can't see her face, but I know she is definitely mortified. People, okay, guys, Brianna has said that under no circumstances should that be clipped.
Are you winking?
No.
Are you winking?
No, I am not winking.
You'll be in big trouble if you're winking.
I'm not winking as I say these words. So that's something to look at, guys. That's really something to look at. So, yeah, Biden, like, oh, look, Biden sucks, guys. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Biden doesn't suck. I'm saying that, like, that my hope is there's some movement in a progressive direction. But I said my realistic fear is that they're going to mess it up. Like, that's what I'm saying here, right? Like, Bernie, before the election, he actually did a really good interview with Crystal Ball. and said to her, and AOC's actually said the same thing. Look, in 2008, in 2010, even in 2012, when Obama won the second time, a lot of people had optimism and hope, and they put a lot of faith in the Democratic Party to fight for them, to fight for the working class, to fight for those who needed the most help, and the party didn't deliver. Now, yeah, sometimes the Republicans obstructed. A lot of times they did. But sometimes the party just plain failed or didn't even try. Right? And though in that context, Donald Trump rose. And so Bernie's warning has always been, right? Bernie's warning has always been that if you do not change the game, then you're going to get punished again. And Bernie has warned the next, because like, look, there's a chance Trumpism doesn't go away. Right? And in fact, I would say that given how much Republicans still love Trump, and given that they know that they can still win with Trumpism, if maybe the representative for Trumpism is a little bit more palatable to middle-class women, for instance, and to white suburbanites, then like maybe they'll roll with Trumpism again. And as Bernie has said, the next Trump could be far more competent than the first Trump. That one of the things that people were saved by was Trump's buffoonery. Trump's buffoonery meant in part that he didn't have the temperament, he didn't have the patience to actually drive through a lot of right-wing policy. And as a result, the Republican Party, fractured in certain ways, and he lost a lot of people that made him president, like white middle-class women who voted with him. They abandoned him by 2018, and then they abandoned him in 2020. He lost those people because of how he spoke, how he acted, right? And so what if the next Trump doesn't like mock disabled people on a stage? What if the next Trump doesn't say vulgar things about women? What if the next Trump, has a more respectable image? What if? The reality is it's going to be a big issue. Right? Right? It's going to be a big issue. Big issue. And so Bernie is right in noting that one of the things you can do is go all out and fight for those that made you president. And pass policies that help them. And let it be known that there's value in voting for you. And they will come out in 2010 and they will bring their friends and family. Because this election had huge turnout. But it's still nowhere near the full amount of people voted. There's still tens of millions of people to get to vote. And still disproportionately, they're poor, they're racialized, they're young. So if the Democrats do well, they could win again with huge turnout. But they got to do well. Biden's got to give people a reason. I'm skeptical, but that's how it's got to be done. And it's not going to work if Biden is talking about bipartisan unity with Republicans, and it's not going to work if Biden's main goal seems to be to rehabilitate the Republican Party. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Now, there was a couple things. There was a question earlier ago. Somebody, Jesse Zimmerman asked if anti-SJWs are complicit in what's been happening. And I wouldn't say they're complicit. But there are some people on the left, and I'm not making this about any individual person. I don't want to start a flame war here. There are some people on the left whose main occupation seems to be, quote-unquote, owning the libs. And look, I love owning the libs as much as the next guy or gal, or whoever. I do. Love owning the libs. But like at this point, it's people are like they're trying to bend over backwards to say, oh, this isn't that big of a deal, or oh, isn't it hilarious, or oh, wouldn't that guy sitting in Nancy Pelosi's chair be a better House Speaker than him, even though he's literally like a fascist? Like at some point you're anti-woke. It just comes off as being a right-winger. Right? Like at some point it just comes off as looking like you're a right-winger. As our revolution says, like and share the stream, y'all. Yeah, if you guys can like it, share. If you're not a subscriber, click the subscribe button. Helps bring you the content. If you have subscribed, click that little bell. Clicking that little bell means that you're going to get the content when I put it up, which it's great because if I do a breaking news story, you'll be among the first to see it. But also it helps me out because when people click early and often on a video, that's a signal to YouTube to pump it out to wider audiences, so that it's great to see. Is this the Discord link for our Discord, Joseph? Let me see. And Joseph just dropped the Discord link. Click that link. It is the Discord link for our channel, so you guys can check that out. It's great to see. Yeah. Thanks, Johnny. Yeah. But like the reality is like at some point it comes off as like I want to like own the libs so bad I'm going to unironically support like a fascist coup. And like bro, like at some point, like your hatred of AOC for whatever reason, like does not mean that you should support people wearing 6MWE shirts. I'm not gonna, yeah, okay. For those who don't know, some of the people at the rally were wearing shirts that said 6 million is not enough, referring to the amount of people of the Jewish background who passed away during Hitler's reign. They were wearing those goddamn shirts during that march, during that invasion. And I have some people on the left, bending over backwards to tell everybody that it's not a big deal and it's a distraction. And how dare AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and all the rest waste their time talking about this when they could be forcing a vote on Medicare for all. Remember, Omar, I am not necessarily mentioning any names here. I'm not trying to make it about individuals here. Necessarily. So, like, yeah, I don't think they're complicit. I don't think that happened because of them. No. It didn't happen because of them. But people like that who just cannot admit that, like, on some issues at some time, the right-wingers are worse than the libs, like, do a disservice. You know? So, like, I love owning the libs, guys. Love it. Love to own the libs. But if owning the libs is the extent of your leftism, at some point, you're just helping the right. That might not be your intent. That might not be whatever. But, like, at some point, you're just helping the right. YouTube channels that exclusively criticize the left, like, they need to have some introspection right now. Right? I'd like to think that on this channel, I try to do both. I try to criticize the neoliberals. I try to criticize the Democratic Party, but not to the extent that I'm going to ignore literal goddamn fascism. Right? There are literally people that are on the quote-unquote left saying AOC was like being a crybaby because she feared for her life last Wednesday. That's their priority right now. Oh, I'm a serious left-wing commentator. I'm a serious progressive commentator. You know, the real issue here is AOC was scared. It's absolutely absurd. And so are they complicit? No, they're not complicit. Because again, these people are a very small percentage of the actual real world. And like the Trump movement would exist with or without them. But the way they talk about it, I think, seems to try to make it that the left-wing position is, if you think that what happened last Wednesday was bad, you're a neoliberal. And I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. So, now Craig Adolph asked if Jagmeet Singh's taking a stand against Trump last year in 2019 was going to help him in the Canadian election. Now, for context, here in Canada, Donald Trump is goddamn hated. They asked Canadians, if you had a vote in the U.S. election, who would you vote for? And I think it was about 82% said they would vote for Biden. So a vast majority of Canadians would vote for Biden over Trump. And actually, similarly, they did the same poll during the primaries. About the same amount would vote for Bernie over Trump. So Trump is very, very much hated in Canada. And last fall, the fall of 2019, Canada had an election. And during that election, Jagmeet Singh said he supported impeachment. Because it was around that time that the Democrats were getting ready to impeach Trump. And so they asked him, do you support impeachment? And he said yes. And the Canadian media freaked the hell out. They were like, blah, 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 blah. How dare he do that? Blah, 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 blah. It's inappropriate to comment on foreign politics, blah, blah, blah. And then other people were like, oh, he can say that. Liberals, because the liberals were jealous. Because liberals hate Trump, but Trudeau always bent over backwards to ingratiate himself to Trump. Never criticizing Trump. Staying silent. Just awful about Trump. The liberals were really jealous because our leader, the leader of the New Democratic Party, the Bernie-like party, for lack of a better description, was like, he was like, yeah, I want to impeach him. And they were like, oh, because he's the third party. He doesn't have to worry about it. The third party can say whatever they want, blah, 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 blah. And then lo and behold, Trump was even more monstrous than we thought. And now no one in their right mind would think he doesn't deserve to be impeached. Right? And going into the election, on the day of the election, Jagmeet Singh said Trump should be voted out. And everyone did the same thing again. He's like, oh, Jagmeet Singh, he's being inappropriate and all these sorts of things. But I don't agree. Look, I get the impulse. To be like, it's not necessarily appropriate for world leaders to interfere in other countries' elections. I get that. Although it should be remembered that Barack Obama endorsed Justin Trudeau, who was in the midst of a thrice blackface scandal. So we'll remember the hypocrisy there. Now I know Obama was out of office at the time, but still. Donald Trump was and for the next 6 days is not only a threat to the United States, but to the world. And a threat to democracy in the world superpower is a threat to democracy more broadly. And so I think you have a responsibility to criticize that. And I think Jagmeet was very brave to do it. And everyone in Canada, all these libs were like, well, you know, if we criticize him, he'll be mean to our economy. And it's like, look, man, one, a lot of the decisions were already locked in, and two, like, we're talking about human rights here. We're talking about goddamn human rights. Donald Trump is you know, he's a menace. And our leaders are staying silent as we continue to embrace this alliance with the USA, as this man is a menace. Even more than Barack Obama, who was also a menace. Even more than many other presidents who are menaces. Right? Like, and so all of these people who were like, oh, he's wrong to do it. It's like, where the hell are they now? Where the hell are they now as Trump literally had his thugs storm the Capitol? And when it was down, when the chips were down, when it was less popular, when it was more controversial, the only major political leader in Canada calling for impeachment was Jagmeet Singh. And he was right to do it. He was right to do it. He was right to do it. 100%. Let me see. I can probably find that link for folks. I remember. Let me see. Did Amneet? It's from Amneet, which is one of Jagmeet's comms people. Let me pull this up here. Here's the link. So this is a link here where Jagmeet, the reason they're saying I wasn't joking is in the previous day it sounded like he was joking about it. And so they asked him the following day, like, did you actually joke about impeaching Trump? And no, he meant it. He wanted to impeach Donald Trump. Now, I think I made a video on this. Let me see. I think I made a video on this back in the day. Let me see. Okay, yeah. So I made this back. Let me see. When did I make this? Truth. And yes, well. Okay, so you guys are gonna see totally awful quality here. Awful quality, guys. It's gonna be awful. Please ignore the off. Wait, that's the link again. Let me do this again. Ignore the quality. But this was the video of Jagmeet saying he wanted to impeach him. So that was the video I made on it. And so go check that out after the stream. And you'll see the clip right at the beginning if you just want to check out the clip. And I think it's actually a little bit higher quality than the one I see floating around the internet again. So that is definitely something that Jagmeet Singh has been proven right about over the past few months, and especially over the past week. People asking if the people are getting hyped about Nina Turner. I am. I think she's going to be great. I think she's going to do a really good job. I think she's going to run a great campaign. I don't know like what the odds are, right? Like, do people get a sense? Anyone here get an actual sense about her chances? Like, on the one hand, no one's going to have a movement like her. No one's going to be able to fundraise like her. But on the other hand, I don't know local Ohio politics. And I don't know, I think, doesn't the other guy have real, like, grassroots connections in the area? That could make it challenging for her. Whereas Nina's been really focused on the national scene through the Burning movement, that maybe, like, she needs to really nurture those local connections. So I don't know. That's something to look at. But I think she's got a great shot. Now, of course, we still have to technically wait until Fudge is confirmed into the cabinet. If Marcy Fudge doesn't get put into the cabinet, then she won't vacate her seat and Nina won't be able to run. So technically, the seat doesn't open up until that cabinet position is filled, but I assume it will be. I don't think Biden will lose that position with the Senate now being in Democratic control. I don't even see Joe Manchin voting against any cabinet appointments necessarily. So, I mean, I think she's got a good shot. She's got a good shot, and I mean, the nature of that district is it's very, very blue. It's a very blue district, so she just has to win the primary, and she much like AOC and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Jamal Bowman and those districts. Those are districts that are deep blue, and they should be held by the most progressive members. Like, this is what the Republican Party does, and this is how the Republican Party effectively pushes politics to the left, right? They effectively push politics because they really have in their deepest red areas a ton of very conservative members. They do not put moderates in their D plus 20 or 30 districts. They get absolute nutters like Marjorie Taylor Greene and literal like Nazi sympathizers like Madison Cawthorn in those districts. Like, that's what they do. They get them there. Right? And so they have relative moderates in like districts in like California and New York. And then those crazies pull policy to the right and make the moderate Republicans look more reasonable. And yet Democrats often have moderates in their deepest blue districts. Look, Nancy Pelosi is not a right-wing Democrat. She isn't. Like, if you chart out the Democratic universe, she's pretty much in the middle, maybe even slightly more to the left than the average congressional Democrat. So that's when people say, like, look, there's no guarantee the next speaker is going to be better than Pelosi. They might be worse. But, like, the reality is there's no reason a person that moderate should be the representative from a district that blue. And that's the issue. Right? That's the issue. You had people like Crowley and Engel in some of the deepest blue districts just taking up space that needs to go to left-wing people. Right? Because now you do have those people that can force the debate to the left. Right? And I think that's definitely something to consider. Definitely something to consider. And so I really do hope Nina has a good setup, because I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be like on the ground. One thing I do know, though, is that they are going to have mechanisms set up for you to volunteer for Nina. I'm not sure if they exist yet. If they do, guys, let me know in the comments. But obviously, if you live in her part of Ohio, you can probably help her as best you can. But I'd be shocked if they don't set up online and mobile and phone canvassing so that people can, basically all call into that district. And so I think that there's a great chance for Nina here to run in a primary off cycle. Because during the cycle, it can be hard. There's so many progressives, and you have to sometimes choose who to support with your money and your time and your energy and your emotion. But Nina is going to be running a primary, and I don't know if any of the other elections that happened off cycle at the time are going to be that meaningful. So there's a real good chance that if she wins, or if she's running, she'll be the only high-profile progressive primarying anyone, running for a primary anywhere, and can consolidate national support. There won't be other races. There won't be a presidential race to distract. So I actually do think it's she's got a shot. She's definitely got a shot. It's like the same thing in the Senate, right? Goddamn, look at Feinstein. Feinstein would be perfectly fine as a senator from a purple state. But senators from California should be among the left-leaning in their votes. Look, Kamala Harris was. I know it's ridiculous, but Kamala Harris was like the sixth most progressive senator probably. But like Dianne Feinstein votes like she's a moderate from Missouri. And that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Yeah, Samantha is noting that Dianne Feinstein has actually filed to maybe run again in 2024 when she's 91. Now, what I've heard some people say is that it's also a technicality. It allows her to continue to keep her finances in order. So it's not a guarantee she'll run, but it is a sign that she may be running. And my hope is that she's either primaried, or she's at the very least gently persuaded to not run again. Like, look, I'm not ageist. I'm not. Bernie Sanders was the oldest man running for president, would have been the oldest president, the oldest person starting president in American history, and he was the best man for the job. But some of these senators, man, they're too old. And it's not just that they're too old, it's just that they're showing the challenges many elderly people have. Not all elderly people. Some people in their late 70s can do the job. Bernie Sanders is one of them. Some people probably can't. And I would suggest, and I've done a video on it, and there's been reporting on it, that Dianne has been showing her age, especially in the last 2 or 3 years. And so, I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but like, there needs to be a new person there. There needs to be a new person there. And I hopefully it's an opportunity for Rokana to run, or for Barbara Lee to run, or for Katie Porter to run. There's a lot of good choices to run in California. And they would all be a lot younger and a lot more progressive. And still bring added diversity at the same time, which would be good. Yeah, ego plays a role. Like, look, I think it's fair to say, like, why didn't Ruth Bader Ginsburg retire when Obama still controlled the courts and the Senate? Like, why not? She should have retired. She should have. She didn't. I think that's fair to note. Right? Like, I get it. Like, you're entitled to stay on. I get it. But, like, at some point, you got to be a team player. You know, it would have been a situation where Obama could have replaced her in 2013, put someone else on the court, and now the courts are everything else stays the same hypothetically, and the courts are only 5-4 conservative instead of 6-3 conservative. And I'll be clear, to be fair to Obama, his picks were good. Sotomayor and Kagan were good picks. They are good. Like Sotomayor especially almost always gets it right. So Obama made good Supreme Court. Merrick Garland wasn't going to be good, but his first 2 picks were good. Somebody's asking what's the difference between a governor and a senator. A governor is the head of a state government, and a senator is a federal representative representing the state. So there's a governor is there's one governor per state, and they are like the president, for lack of a better term, of the state. They are the executive officer of the state. The senators, there's 2 from each state, and they are elected statewide, but they are not members of the state government. They're members of the federal government. So the federal government is formed up by the president, and then the 100 senators, 2 per state, and then the 435 members of the House, who are divided largely proportionally between the states, but the biggest states are a little bit underrepresented, and the smallest states are overrepresented. And so that's generally how it works. So every state has a governor, every state has 2 senators, every state has at least 1 congressperson, but as many as 50 some, and that's how it works. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. Like, I think that there's a real challenge that'll come forward in the next few months about the Democrats finding out how best to navigate these next 2 years, because the Republicans will be divided. It's not like after Bush. After Bush, the Republicans were not this divided. Like, when McCain lost, there wasn't a huge fracture in the Republican Party. Yeah, the Tea Party came along, I get it, but like, there wasn't the fracture like there is now. Donald Trump is tearing the party apart. George Bush, when he left office, John McCain, when he lost that election, did not start threatening Republicans that disagreed with him. And so I think that there's an opportunity here for the Democrats to push forward on some good things and catch the Republican Party when it's down. My fear is that they either can't do it or just don't want to do it. So, guys, I'm going to wrap up. It's been a long day here, busy with news, but also just, with Dimitrios not at daycare right now because we're trying to stay safe during COVID. It's just been extra busy. So I'm going to call this stream. We normally end, between 10 and 10:30. So this was great. Before you go, a few things. One, again, thank you to everyone who came. I know that Joseph and maybe others shared the link to the stream or to the Discord, but I'm going to share it again. Do check that out. If you want to support the channel, there's a few ways you can do it. One, if you aren't a subscriber yet, click the subscribe button. Again, I cover Canadian politics, American politics on the stream, especially. I cover American now, but I cover politics progressively, daily. So there's always videos, usually multiple per day, that you can always be here to watch. If you're already subscribed, do click that bell. If you click the bell again, you'll see videos as soon as they come out, and it helps me as a creator. Also, if you want to support the channel and you have the means, I know not everyone does, especially now with COVID, but you can support the channel by becoming a member at Patreon. You could support the channel by becoming a member here on YouTube, and you can support the channel on a one-time basis if you want through things like PayPal and I have a lot of those links in the description. So guys, thank you so much for this great stream. It was fantastic. Thank you for all the new people, for all the great questions, for the support. I really appreciated it. And you guys are great. Again, I do this every Wednesday, 8 p.m. to about 10:30. And then we're going to keep covering politics on a daily perspective. So guys, have a good one. And Nicole, thank you so much for the last little super chat there. Always happy to be here. And thank you guys all so much for spending your time with me. So have a good one, guys. And I will see you next week and with new videos ASAP.